Welcome back to Maria Amigos. I'm your host, Maria Cardona. I'm here with my co-host, award-winning journalist and author, Maria Hinojosa, and we'd like to welcome Karla Gonzáles García, who is a former sexual health educator and domestic violence and sexual assault victims advocate, and currently the policy director for Color and Color Action Fund, a community-rooted nonprofit organization that works to enable individuals in the Latino communities and their families to be safe, healthy, and lead self-determined lives. Karla, welcome to Maria. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited and honored to be with both of you. Such a great fun.
Thank you so much. So, Karla, the lack of healthcare access affects Latinas across the board, as you know. But how does it impact their mental health after giving birth? That's something that we don't talk about enough. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you for bringing that issue, Maria, because the higher rate of maternal mortality here in Colorado for women happens because of mental health. The lack of access to the full range of health services, including mental health and behavioral health, has created a crisis here in Colorado. So when we talk about access to healthcare, we need to talk about how the systems are not working for our communities. Because even, for Medicaid, if you are a low-income person and try to get Medicaid, for example, Medicaid here in Colorado just covers 60 days after you have given birth. So when we know, as research keeps showing, that there is, like, if you go to one appointment, postpartum appointment, your chances actually of surviving increases to 80%. But when you are in a low-income family that don't have the proper documentation, that you are, for example, a victim of abuse, and on top of that, you have to support your kids on your own, how we are going to be thinking even to have an appointment when we are trying to survive. And until we don't have the policies, the change of policies, we are going to unfortunately continue seeing this.
So, Karla, you were born in Iquitos, Peru, which is in the selva, actually, las
Sí.
Amazonas of Peru, the north of Peru.
Sí.
And then you make your way to Colorado,
Sí.
and there's a big trajectory there. You end up doing this work in terms of supporting women and their reproductive rights in Colorado. But along those lines, there's also a connection to liberation theology. I've known about liberation theology since I learned about it in college, and it really transformed my way of understanding who we are as Latinos and Latinas vis-a-vis our understanding of our kind of spirituality. So how does liberation theology play into the work that you're doing with Colorado women right now and Latinas?
For us, Latinas, correct, we know that our communities are very spiritual. A lot of our community members are Catholics, then you have a section of Christianity. We cannot talk about reproductive justice without talking about religion. And when we talk about religion, here is the point, because a lot of times religion has been used as a weapon against ourselves. When religion is not that, religion actually is about loving yourself and loving your community and loving everyone and not judging and being able to truly serve your community and to truly make sure that you are in this path of liberation. So when we talk about, for example, reproductive justice and spirituality, those decisions, those very, very sacred decisions has to be made on your own with, if you decide to, your partner, your family, some members of your communities. And some people actually go to a pastor to talk about these issues because they are feeling judged or they are feeling, and all this stigma plays upon them. Thank you for also bringing up about me being in Peru, because something I want to talk, just to give an example, is that I had an abortion in Peru. Abortion is illegal. And we know that there is a high amount of rate of death among women that have abortions. I had a friend when I was young that died from an unsafe abortion. So when you were talking about shame, and I want to say this, It was the first time that I talked to my story about my abortion story here in the United States. Never talked to anyone in Peru because of the deep shame that I was feeling, because I was afraid that maybe the police is gonna look for me, because the police was gonna go into my family and blame them for this. So never talk about that. And it was here in the United States, actually in January, when for first time I talk about my abortion story. Like, I felt empowered enough after over 20 years that I was able to talk to about my story. Colorado right now, unfortunately, there is going to be a ballot initiative, these elections, that will ban abortion at 22 weeks. So we are working really hard to make sure, that to educate people about what this would do to pregnant people.
That's happening in Colorado because
Yes.
one particular doctor in the city of Boulder,
Yes.
Colorado,
Yes.
Dr. Hearn, provides
Yep.
abortions for women later in their pregnancy. I've been to his clinic, which is like,
Yes.
it's under federal martial protection because his life is on the line for doing a medical procedure. And now there's a ballot to ban this in the state simply because of one doctor.
This ballot initiative doesn't even have exceptions. So if you are a victim of rape or incest, doesn't matter. If you have complications in your pregnancy, like a fetal diagnosis, doesn't matter. Colorado is one of the few places in the whole entire country where women that are having complications in the pregnancy travel here to have the health services.
Tocaya, you are so highly political, Tocaya. You know everything that Karla is talking about leads us all back to the issue of politics, right?
First of all, Karla, I want to thank you, and I know my Tocaya Maria also thanks you and appreciates it, as she can deeply appreciate this on a personal level. You're sharing your story about what you did helps Latinas get out from the stigma that what happened to you is somehow something that we all need to cover up, be ashamed of, lie about. That is absolutely not the case. So you're speaking out, and I know that it wasn't easy, is such a step forward. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. And you are right, Karla. These bills are being written specifically to hurt women. I mean, let's just lay it out on the line, because that's what it is. They are written by white men, and they specifically and disproportionately hurt women of color. And there's no more important time for everyone's voice to get involved than in this election. Because in this election, we can send a message to our leaders that we have a strong voice, that we are going to use that voice and that power at the ballot box, so that we no longer have leaders who are going to impose their own will, their own supposed moral and religious values, and weaponize this issue against us. We're going to take control of our bodies. We're going to take control of the decisions that get made at the legislatures and in the White House, because we're going to elect allies that understand what this issue really is. Amen. Sigamos la conversación, amigos. We'll be right back after the break with more with our guest, Karla. No se me vayan. This is Maria. Amigos, welcome back to Maria. I'm your host, Maria Cardona. I'm here with my co-host, award-winning journalist and author, Maria Hinojosa. And we're back with Karla Gonzáles García, who is a former sexual health educator and domestic violence and sexual assault victims advocate, and currently the policy director for Color and Color Action Fund. Karla, you're sharing your story about the abortion that you had in Peru helps millions of Latinas and millions of women get out from the stigma of shame. I want to keep on having this conversation if I can, because, this personal story was so evocative and compelling to me, to Maria. I'm sure it's going to be to all of our audience. And I want you to talk once more about how this issue for you was something that you did to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to take care of your health? Because this is an issue about healthcare.
Yeah, so, gosh, I hope not to cry right now. And
it's okay.
I was around 20. I was in college, so I was kind of towards the end of finishing my degree. I got pregnant, correct? I was a low-income woman. My family didn't have the money to support another mouth if I bring another mouth in the house. So I needed to find the money through friends that could lend me some money so I can pay a good doctor so I don't die. On Saturday, when I was sharing my story, I shared my story also in Spanish. Una vez mi terapeuta me dijo, el día que yo pueda dar mi historia en español es cuando yo voy a sanarme. And never spoke in Spanish about this, never. And on Saturday, when I was giving my story in Spanish, I lost it. But I didn't lose it. I want to make sure that everyone knows this. I didn't lose it because I regret it. No, I never regret my abortion. Never. Because I didn't have the income to support a child. My family didn't have the income to support another mouth. And somehow also within myself, as the first child in my family, as many of us might feel, we end up helping our families. And right now, I am the only provider for my family back at home. Everyone is there. So they count with my money. So when I think about my decision, if I didn't make that decision, I wouldn't be able to support my family during these times right now. So I am never regret that decision.
People confuse the fact that we have memories about what was happening when we decided to have an abortion. I was about the same story as you in college. There was no way this was going to happen. And I remember many years ago when I would talk about it, I would get emotional because there was a whole context. It doesn't mean that you regret your decision. We are human beings.
Right.
And that decision is a very private, moral decision that we make and we have to live with and make peace with through any way possible. So again, I just want to say the more that you talk about it, the more you release it, the more you help other women to not be upset about
That's
something
right.
that they did that probably, like in my case, and in your case, saved our lives.
You lost it, as you say, you cried because you were relieving such a huge burden. I think your therapist was right. You were healing in that moment.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that because that's exactly how it felt. And the other thing that I want to also bring up too is that how a lot of times we get re-victimized, correct? Because of the work that we do and because it's so political that like I've been called baby killer, murder. I got letters, correct, that pretty much were saying horrible, nasty things. When I was telling my story in Spanish, I was reliving me on the bed. That in that moment I was crying because I was afraid that I wasn't going to wake up.
Right.
I was afraid that I was ended up like my friend. And that's a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And that's something that I want everyone to know is that even when I knew that I might not wake up because banning abortion is just to make them unsafe, they are not going to stop. It's just make them unsafe. So being in that moment, with those deep fears and crying so much because I was afraid that I wasn't going to wake up, still I didn't doubt about not having that child, not having that pregnancy.
We should not have to experience trauma because of personal health decisions that we make about our lives. I'm so proud of Karla for sharing her story and for you making space for this conversation.
Well, thank you so much. You change lives with the work that you're doing, but you've also changed lives today. When women and men hear your story, I guarantee you have changed lives for the better. Karla, thank you so much for being on Maria. We deeply, deeply appreciate you sharing your personal story, amiga. Hermana, cuídate mucho.
Muchísimas gracias.